Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today our guest is Mr. Sitaram Yechury, Senior CPM Leader and member of the CPIM Politburo. Welcome to our show, Mr. Sitaram Yechury. We are running a series around the budget. So what is the left party's expectation of this budget?
Well, I mean, what we wish and what will happen will be entirely two different things. What I am afraid will happen is that this budget will carry forward the entire trajectory of neoliberal financial reforms, which the corporate world and international finance always hails as Gen Next reforms. But I think that is not going to help India in the present situation. You have a global recession virtually.
Even domestic employment, etc., it won't help.
It won't help. It will only provide avenues for international capital when their known avenues have dried up now in the West. They'll find new avenues for their profits, but it won't help us domestically. So that is why we think that the budget should be more focused on concentrating on how to increase domestic demand in our country. In this global situation, your exports have drastically fallen. And you can't expect them to revive also.
There is also broad expectation that the West will not pick up in the next 4-5 years.
Exactly. And even IMF now, on the basis of the last quarter of this year, has again scaled down.
And China is also focusing on internal demand. So you're talking about India should also focus on internal
demand. And I think there are tremendous possibilities where you can actually expand substantially the domestic demand, which will generate also new employment and will also improve the livelihood of the people and also put us on a sustainable growth trajectory. Because the thinking of the government, according to me, I mean, it is faulty, even not a little, fairly faulty, in the sense they are hoping that this inflow of foreign capital will make available capital for investment, which will lead to growth. That is the logic. Now, fine, even if it makes capital available for investment, you have to have a demand for the produce of that investment. No?
You have to raise incomes at the bottom
level. I mean, otherwise, who will buy those products of new investment? And if people don't buy, that money will go into speculation.
Mr. Yechury, in this regard, there is a data which has been released by NSSO, which says that in the last 5 years, the real income in rural areas has grown by 6.8%, as opposed to the previous 5 years where it was stagnant. Now, do you think that this real income growth could sustain consumption for some time, and there is enough data to show that consumption has not gone down in India? It is investment cycle which has stalled, domestic investment cycle. So what should be the focus on, investment or consumption of the budget?
I would say on consumption, because you see, these figures that the NSSO put out, as an economist you would also know, as all of us know, that growth rate figures always are very crucially dependent on your base level. And if your base level is low, I mean, it can show you a very high percentage. But in absolute amounts, I mean, it is not really so large as to sustain a growth trajectory. So what is required, in my opinion, is that, and it's possible. I mean, if we extended on the basis of last year's budget papers, last year's the tax foregone, according to the budget papers, was 5.28 lakh crores.
Both direct and indirect taxes.
All the taxes foregone. No, that was said that was necessary as incentive for industry. And then what happened from July 2011, when your manufacturing growth was a healthy 5% or more, it came down to 0.1% in July 2012. So what does it tell you? It tells you that though you have given these incentives, growth could not take place because the domestic demand did not match. And this is what explains also. Remember, the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister both sat with all your PSU chiefs saying you got so much of cash fund, why are you not investing?
Why not?
I mean, and why are they not investing? I mean, they answered by saying that if you invest, who's there to buy these products?
Yeah.
So instead, what is happening in India? Prices of gold, prices of land, all of them rising.
Rising, yeah.
Is because this capital is moving into speculation rather than production.
Yeah.
So this tells you clearly that where your focus should be, domestic demand and consumption. Raise that. Collect these taxes, use them for public investments to build our woeful infrastructure, generate jobs, and then growth will happen.
Mr. Yechury, the finance minister has spoken about taxing the super rich. Now, where is your party on this? You think they can be the rich can be taxed more, and at this time when the fisc is also a bit shaky, the fiscal deficit very high. So, do you think?
You see, the point is, I have no really problems in taxing the super rich because that's a universal trend. You've seen it in France now, you're seeing it in the US now. That's the universal trend. But as far as tackling the fiscal problem, the question of your fiscal deficit, you just see the figures. 6.9% last budget, all of us were stunned that it was too high. Yeah. It is too high. Yeah. But what is the absolute amount? 5.22 lakh crores. Yeah. Okay. What is the tax forgone? 5.28 lakh crores. Okay. So you see the cause for the fiscal deficit. Yeah. And now instead you say, in order to control this fiscal deficit, I have to cut subsidies and hike prices. Yeah. You're shrinking. You're shrinking domestic demand further. You see, you're playing the reversal role.
But Mr. Yechury, a lot of the tax forgone is also on the excise side, where backward area zero excise industry has been set up. On a zero excise basis, industry has gone to Uttarakhand, Himachal. Do you think that can be reversed?
No, I don't think.
Because a lot of the tax forgone is also,
Agreed. You see, but unfortunately, the component of such which are required tax forgones, I would say, backward areas. Some of these are required. For the sake of balanced development.
Yeah, balanced development. Yeah.
So, but the proportion of that in the tax forgone is not too high.
It's not too high. Okay.
You retain that. You retain that, or review whether more than sufficient has gone into places which can't really sustain them.
Okay. You move it to where it is needed. We'll take a small break here. Please don't go away and stay with us. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with senior CPIM leader, Mr. Sitaram Yechury. Yeah, we were discussing tax forgone, the sheer amount of tax forgone, and you were suggesting that those could be reviewed, and some areas where they're really needed can be retained and others not. In this context, I want to come back to another big tax reform, which in which CPM was a big supporter, and when you were partner with UPA, you had initiated the VAT system, which has worked well, and subsequently GST also. Now, do you think that GST is a reform which can generate much higher tax base by bringing in real estate and all kinds of areas which are currently not being taxed, and where does CPM stand on that?
Well, I think we made a stand very clear when the group of finance ministers was headed by the CPM West Bengal finance minister.
Sure, it was CPM had a big contribution in the entire
process,
policy framework. Yeah,
in the entire process, you see, but there's one problem in this, and that problem we had already pointed out to the union government. It's necessary for it would be better for the Prime Minister to meet the
constitutional power of the states.
Yeah. You see, and that is the only financial power the states have.
Yeah.
Essentially, sales tax. Yeah. Now, if you take that away also, the states are left with no other power.
But you had suggested some flexible format, right?
So we had suggested a flexible format.
What is that format? Can you explain it?
The format is that there are some states which fear that they are going to lose out. And it is correct.
Yeah.
They will lose out in the initial years.
Yeah.
The center should compensate.
The non-producing states.
Yeah. Center should compensate them for that.
Yeah.
That package will have to be worked out. And I think most of the exercise has already been done. That can be. But all this needs to be formalized either at an NDC meeting, which will be the best way to do it. And the states should be persuaded, saying that it is eventually in their interest, while they are losing this right to tax, but the safeguard of that is to be provided in the legislation itself.
In the legislation itself. Yeah.
That they will not, their revenues will not reduce as a result.
Yeah. Okay.
On the contrary, they'll increase. But there's a second additional advantage in this.
Yeah.
Right now, what is happening is it's an unfortunate rat race between the states of giving tax concessions to attract industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now this is leading to very unhealthy competition.
Okay.
Industry is not going where you have economies of scale.
Yeah.
Industries are going where you have greater tax relief,
Yeah.
which is creating also very unbalanced development.
So there has to be a holistic, approach. Yeah.
And I think, the discussions have reached a stage where, unfortunately, I don't know why this government has put in cold feet on that now, but they should carry this forward. Yes, some states have very strong objections, and that was very genuine objections.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But that needs to be offset, and it can be. I mean, the formula they.
And this interstate council, as a main decision-making body for this flexible format, is that a good idea?
Very good idea. In fact, in the State Council, if you look at the original conception of our constitutional makers, the Planning Commission was the permanent secretariat of the Interstate Council.
Yeah.
I mean, you have some way down the line separated and made the Planning Commission into a huge, big holy cow.
Okay.
You know, but it was basically.
So you're saying the tail became the dog.
The Planning Commission was essentially a permanent secretariat of the Interstate Council, and that was your safeguard for your federal structure.
Yeah. Do you think we should return to
I think
that
so.
sort of framework?
I think so, because that then,
Since the Constitution already provides for it.
and that is the only way these misgivings on the question of how the federalism should be, implemented can be overcome.
Yeah. In fact, to some extent, I think you would also concede that Planning Commission is now increasingly much more participative when it comes to dealing with the states, as opposed to maybe 20 years ago when there was a kind of talking down to states. Has it changed in your view?
It has
Since the power is shifting, I think the discourse is also shifting, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's also setting an agenda. It's not merely shifting the discourse.
Yeah.
Planning Commission today is setting an agenda, which ought not to be the role of the Planning Commission, because that's a policy matters. And the preoccupation with the PPP, for example, that everything will be PPP.
Yeah.
No, that is creating, I think, a very distorted economy.
Yeah, sure.
Now you get just in a minute. I mean, just understand this example. You have decided 25% of the seats in educational institutions, private educational institutions, will be given to backward sections, students from backward sections. Very good. But the state will pay. So the net result is the state is paying some huge amounts to private institutions, while with those amounts, the state itself can set up new colleges.
Okay.
You are instead subsidizing, and now you reach the stage in some states like Andhra Pradesh, where the state is not able to pay that money, and the students are being thrown out. It's creating a big social problem. So this prioritization, I think, there's a lot that needs to be corrected.
So you essentially you're suggesting that there needs to be much more genuine decentralization.
Absolutely.
In terms of what states want to do with the money that is transferred by the center to them. Now, in this regard, I just want to ask you, there's been Mr. Yechury, a huge increase in centrally funded schemes over the last, say, 15 years. There's this data that which Mr. Mani Shankar Iyer is very fond of quoting always. In 1994 or 95, centrally sponsored schemes, funding was of the order of about 8,000 crore, and today it is 2,30,000 crore. All kinds of schemes, Narega, Manrega, health schemes. Now, do you think that this amount, this money is being used properly, number one? And if not, what is your sense? How can this money be optimally used?
You see, it's not being used properly. There are lots and lots of leakages, and even with Rega, I mean, though we insisted and pushed for that in the UPA 1 period, and which is why the UPA 2 was formed actually, ironically, after we do this. But this money can actually go in for much better use and much more efficiently. Because we had suggested right then, Rega is not a dole. The Rega has to be used to build your infrastructure.
Asset creating rather
Asset creating. No, that has not happened. There are lots of leakages.
But in some places, apparently it's happening.
Yes,
where district collectors are using it to create water bodies or
Exactly. I mean, water harvesting and all that. Yes, it is happening. I mean, it's got a much larger potential. Now, therefore, all these schemes, there's need for you to sit with the state governments and devise mechanisms by which these funds that will flow are properly utilized. And I think that can be done, and this should not be stopped because of the leakages or saying that they are not effective.
Okay. So we'll just take a small break here and discuss this in greater detail. Please don't go away and keep watching Rajsmati. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with Mr. Sitaram Yechury, Senior CPIM leader, on the forthcoming budget and expectations around it. Mr. Yechury, you spoke about how the huge centrally sponsored schemes, the big funding that is happening today, are not being utilized properly. Schemes are flawed. Sometimes states want certain flexibility which probably center is not able to give. Now, what is the alternative? Do you think we can evolve a radically different system where these funds are given to states as per some norm, and then they just use it they put it to the best use as per their requirement? Now, this is something all opposition parties, regional parties who are running states have been demanding, including Narendra Modi. And in fact, Narendra Modi, yesterday he claimed in his address in SRCC how he has managed to use funds much more efficiently, increase the number of water bodies, increase agriculture growth rate. Now, do you think that at some level, some states are doing it more efficiently than the other states?
Well, I mean, I won't use Modi in Gujarat as a parameter because you see, less said the better. Because in terms of human development indices, Gujarat is one of the worst states that you have in the country. You know, so therefore we'll have to.
It has a huge tribal population where nothing is
big, and therefore we'll have to look at it holistically. I mean, not this hype. You know,
no, I'm on a larger question of whether some people are using it better than the other. It can be Modi, it can be some Congress states or some BJD or whatever.
Some people are definitely using it better. And you see, I think the need has come whereby the centrally sponsored schemes, instead of being doled out from the center, you'll have to have a more proactive involvement of the state governments. And that can be done. I mean, you see, for instance, we have our MP Lads funds. Now we propose a project that is vetted by the administration. Then a utilization certificate has to be provided before the money is released. So you can have all these safeguards. But what, suppose in a particular, and we know from our experience of the panchayats in Bengal, remember after Bengal started the panchayat system, it took 11 years after Rajiv Gandhi brought in the constitutional amendment. So with all this wealth of experience, we understood that when you say this money is for this, the panchayat turns back and say, we don't want that, we want this.
We want it for this.
And not for that. No, and not for a bridge, but we want it for a well, you know, and so something like that. And they know best what is required. So what you devolve the funds and say, I mean, you know, and let them give you the project, you vet it, you make sure that there is no leakages that are taking place there, and then let that be done. I mean, this can be easily worked out. But the center should also not use these schemes only as populist gimmicks before elections. But actually as schemes that will improve people's livelihood. And I'm sure with the state governments you can easily work out a mechanism.
And where do you stand, Mr. Yechury, on the new mechanism to deliver social welfare program through direct benefit transfer scheme? Now, this is becoming a bit controversial, mainly because of implementation issues. But conceptually, where do you stand on this? I mean, do you agree that it will work in many areas or it won't work? What's your view?
You see, conceptually, I mean, there are practical problems. In fact, the UID legislation has not yet come before the Parliament. It has gone to the standing committee, the report has come which said, reject this, bring a new draft. Now, what the government will know, we don't know. But the scheme is based entirely on the UID. I mean, no, that is not yet legal in our country. I mean, you know, it's not been worked out properly. Those are one set of problems. But conceptually, just understand that suppose I give you a certain amount of money, which today will buy you certain amount of food grains. Now you therefore dismantle your public distribution system
Yeah.
and give the people the cash and say that you buy it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now over a period of time, as prices rise, the money that you are getting is not sufficient to buy that quantity.
Yeah.
Now a direct benefit scheme transfer,
Yeah.
unless it is linked
Yeah.
to your inflation levels,
Sorry. Yeah.
it cannot work.
Yeah.
You see, otherwise conceptually what will happen is that it is an automatic process of reducing subsidies.
Okay.
And it will also, on the other hand, dismantle your public distribution system.
So, but can't there be a balance struck where the PDS system is working well, don't disturb it, but where, for instance, this huge corruption which is very obvious, like in kerosene being mixed with diesel, all benefits going to petrol pump owners, it may work there. You may save a lot of money on kerosene, and then you shift it to towards the really poor. So, do you think some of these experiments?
That can be. I mean, we can consider some of these experiments. The point is that the people have to be taken on board for all this.
For the diesel, do you think it makes sense for us to buy diesel at international crude at international prices and give it to the owners of SUVs in Delhi and Bombay at 20% less?
This is something which we have been talking from 1996. In the 1996 United Front Government Steering Committee, I had proposed a one-time cess on diesel luxury cars.
Yeah.
You work out over a period of 10 years how much they're getting out of the subsidy.
Yeah.
Easily it can be worked out. And you say, brother, you'll have to pay this much amount of money if you're going to take this subsidized diesel.
Yeah.
But you see, then it was not agreed upon because they thought automobile industry is going to be the engine of economic growth.
Yeah.
So don't dampen it.
Yeah.
And that not dampening has continued for now almost 20 years.
Yeah.
No, this is absolutely illogical. And secondly, remember,
So you feel that the business lobbies they prevail upon policy in these situations?
Obviously, all the diesel car makers who set up a shop here would definitely want that to happen.
Yeah.
And secondly, remember, we are importing crude at international prices, but we refine it in India. So the price of diesel in India should be on the basis of Indian cost of refining.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Why should it be on par with the international price?
The diesel should be not on par, but you'll have to the price of crude and add the
your
refining
production.
cost.
Add your refining cost.
Add our refining cost.
Yeah, exactly.
And one last question, Mr. Yechury. Today, what should this budget focus on? Today, growth has collapsed. 5% advance estimate which has come today.
Exactly.
GDP, and inflation is stubbornly at 7.5.
8.
Now, what should it focus on? Inflation or growth? I mean, there's a big dilemma. In a stagflation, what should a budget focus on?
I think on growth.
Okay.
You see, because this inflation, the diagnosis that the government does, I think is faulty. It is not because of a supply-demand mismatch. It has got a large amount of it is due to speculation and forward trend.
Bad supply policy.
So policy bad, reaching, all that is one set of problems. The other one is also the speculation in commodity exchanges. I mean, which the United Nations has said was global price hike.
You mean the financial bubble that you're talking about?
And the United Nations report.
But that emanates partly from Wall Street, right? I mean, largely from Wall Street.
Correct. So let us insulate ourselves. Stop this.
But how do you insulate yourself?
I'll tell you.
Because we are in this finance capital game, whether we like it or not.
Correct. But at least for the time being, you say all essential food grains or essential food commodities will be removed from your commodity exchanges.
Okay.
That way.
Okay.
We can insulate ourselves. There are ways of doing it. So therefore, what I would say, focus on increasing domestic demand and growth.
Okay.
And that, I think, will in itself restore the balance.
Or do you think some developing economies can get together and come up with new price discovery mechanisms around food and energy?
If the BRICS can do it, that will be a very good. I mean, in fact, it will be excellent. I mean, that we have our own indices, and don't go by what the Wall Street tells you. I mean, that will be a wonderful step forward.
Sure. Thanks for talking to us, Mr. Yechury. Pleasure. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thank you. Thanks for watching.